Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, April 22nd. The LA Galaxy get a 4-3 win over San Jose Earthquakes. It wasn't pretty. It was a little bit of a nail-biter. Maybe it made you nervous. Maybe it gave you a heart attack. We're going to talk about that game in the 100th edition of the Cali-Clasico, how the LA Galaxy got all 3 points down to 10 men in the last 20 minutes, and how they are currently first in the Western Conference, maintaining that, and tied for first in that supporter shield, although, you know, Miami finally actually came up with the points per game, so we can give it to them a little bit longer now. So we're going to talk about all that and a new contract for Mr. Riqui Puig as well, so a lot to get to, a lot to talk to. Filling in for Mr. Kevin Baxter, who's off covering hockey tonight, it is the one and only Alex El Nino Ruiz. Alex, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. I mean, the 100th Cali-Clasico definitely lived up to a bit of the hype, even though, as we were talking a bit backstage, I'm not too big of a Cali-Clasico guy, but man, what a game. It was a
weird one. It was a fun one. It was funny because we had our little halftime meetup as we do, and we were standing in a circle there. Everybody was talking. I'm like, man, I mean, there's gonna be more goals in this game. You can tell. And I go, but I'm not sure there's much to complain about with the Galaxy. You know, up. You know, they're rolling. Like some of the first 30 minutes of that game was some of the best soccer the LA Galaxy have played this year. And I'm like, man, this is the level that we knew that the LA Galaxy could get. And we had Greg Vanney on Thursday night. He was talking. I asked him what the ceiling was for this team, right? And that first 30 minutes was some of the ceiling. It wasn't perfect, but the speed of play was so lightning fast that San Jose looked like they hadn't got off the bus yet. So I don't know. It was really impressive to me to watch the Galaxy play in this way, and we'll talk about lineups and formations and all that sort of stuff in a more quote unquote traditional formation on Sunday. It was super impressive for that first 30 minutes. After that, we can talk about debacles and all the fun stuff that comes. But for me, the first 30 minutes, Alex, was some of the best I've seen the Galaxy play.
Yeah, it was really impressive. I mean, you were without Mickey Yamane for this game, so just imagine him out there. I mean, we haven't even seen this Galaxy yet at its highest potential, and I think that's the most exciting part. And look, all the guys appeared, the DPs appeared, key players like Gaston Brugman had excellent games. Julian Alde, I thought, had a good game too. I mean, Mayo Yoshida did his thing as well. So everyone definitely, played their role and played a part in the Galaxy having such a good first half. But like you mentioned, definitely a second half where, it was a more squeaky bum time.
It was an interesting one for sure. So we wanted to get through that, but it was great. I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to start with the atmosphere, and I got out there relatively early. I came in. And I was talking to our good friend, Mr. Michael Araujo, the voice of our intros here and the voice of the LA Galaxy in the stadium. And I was talking to him, just saying hi, catching up, and we were going back and forth. And LA Galaxy president of business operations, Mr. Tom Braun, stopped by to say hi to everybody. And I said, hey, Tom, how's it going? He goes, we're going to have a great crowd tonight. He goes, it's great. He goes, this is like our second highest crowd up to Miami. And I'm like, there's no way. A Sunday at like 5:15 that you're going to get like this place that packed. And he's like, oh, there were only, a couple hundred tickets left whenever it all came down. Eventually, more than 25,300 in attendance for this game. Absolutely electric. It was loud, Alex. It was loud in a not in the playoff game way and not in the Messi game way. Those are different. These are different things. But
like in a buzz way?
Like in a buzz?
You're going to feel the excitement in the arena. And again, this Galaxy team is good. And when the team is good, when the stars are playing well, right, people are going to come out. People are going to invest their money into that. And you're seeing, it kind of pay dividends. Galaxy leading the top of the Western Conference, tied for Supporter Shield. I mean, they're going to come out when the Galaxy is good.
So here's my thing. I agree, and then I'm going to disagree. And Damien and I were actually talking about this too, right? I was like, hey, you're getting the stadium, like you're getting the vibe. People want to see a good LA Galaxy team. And within the LA Galaxy community and people who follow the LA Galaxy, it's vibing right now. People are like, yes, absolutely. I want to be there. I want to watch them play, the whole deal. I still wonder, though, and having seen what, which press sort of media shows up and what the buzz is around that, is how much international attention the Galaxy are grabbing right now. They don't have the big star. And I'm not saying they need to have it. I'm not saying that having the international attention is what you want. Maybe winning MLS Cups again is what you want if you're the LA Galaxy. But, certainly there is, I think, still a question mark out of whether or not the winning team, and listen, we are so early in on this, I don't want to no cart before horses, but I have argued for a long time you need winning and stars to be really successful in Los Angeles. And so are you creating the stars? I mean, Joseph Paintsel, Gabriel Peck, I'm in if they're going to be creating those guys, especially for Paintsel, who absolutely deserves to be in MVP conversations, is probably, between him and Riqui are the best players on the team, easily hands down, and you're watching them play. So I'm for it. Create those stars, but will it create the international buzz? Will it create the nationwide buzz? MLS is so siloed, and we talk about it all the time. It's so local. Do you need the international? Do you need it outside? Does it need to be bigger than what it is? But absolutely 25,000 plus, 25,300 plus. Huge crowd for a Sunday night. Came out, got to see an exciting game. They were nervous for the last 20, 30 minutes. That's fine, right? The whole deal, but Galaxy get the win. So I want to keep watching that. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. I don't know that, right? But that's one of the things.
It's like one of those things where time will tell what happens, right? And then there's a whole summer transfer window come in. I mean, you got the Euros and Copa America, so that's definitely playing a part in, the current movement of players around the world. So, maybe there's room for a star, right? I mean, we've seen some players come, high profile players come on TAM deals for half season, right? We saw that with Zlatan not too long ago, right?
Yep.
1 year on TAM, then DP next. So, and especially with the way rules are changing, who knows what might happen in the future. So, yeah, I mean, until the season's over, let's see if they can get that, star that elevates, the eyes on them across the globe, if we're being honest. But yeah, again, time will tell. But right now, everything's rolling pretty well.
Hey, it's a great time. Absolutely come out to the stadium because they're fun. The Galaxy are fun to watch. I don't know that there's some more explosive offense in what we've been seeing than the LA Galaxy.
Goals.
Yeah, I mean,
there will be goals.
There's going to be lots on both sides, right? There's going to be goals on both sides. Matt, by the way, $10 super chat. Thank you for that, and your 10th super chat on the live stream, Matt. We appreciate that. Missed a few shows, but that preseason optimism lives on. Going to need everyone's favorite soccer mom to coach me on how to get my newborn twins enrolled in the Galaxy Academy someday. So you're already lining stuff up. Little do you know that Alex is just barely older than your newborn twins, and he's also trying to get enrolled in the LA Galaxy Academy, right,
Alex?
Yeah,
trying to, make it out as a left winger, inverted on my right, can cut in.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, I some people know, but, when I play soccer, I have, an alter ego, and that's, Alexinho.
Yep.
So that's my soccer name. Yeah. So if you ever see me on the pitch, don't call me Alex. Call me Alexinho.
I'll get just single name. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Got it. 100%. No, it is. It's a lot of fun out there and at the stadium. So again, get out there. It is just absolutely buzzing, and it's the buzzing in the way that there was that early chance. Let's talk about the lineups here. Galaxy win 4-3. We're going to talk about it. Joseph Paintsel, Dejan Joveljic, Gabriel Peck across the front side, and again, I'm going to say it, Alex. More traditional lineup this time. You had, Paintsel on one side, you had Peck on one side. They basically stayed away from each other. There was some really fun cross runs by Joseph Paintsel that actually ended up leading to the penalty kick goal. It was one of his runs that he came all the way across the field to combine with Peck. He gets fouled, and then that leads to the free kick that eventually led to the chicken wing and the handball and the penalty kick for all that. So some really fun stuff, but for the most part stayed out wide, and you saw, I think, an emergence of Gabriel Peck getting a lot more comfortable in Major League Soccer as well. So those three up top, you have Riqui Puig and Gaston Brugman and Mark Delgado in the center, Julian Alde, Martin Cáceres, Maya Yoshida, and then Edwin Cerrillo, who was filling in for Miki Yamane. Miki Yamane diagnosed with a bone bone bruise. Apparently, Greg Vanney said afterwards, a bone bruise that was aggravated again. So he's had a bone bruise, and then it was aggravated in training, and he found out he couldn't go. And so then everybody said, well, why wouldn't you play Cuevas then? And that's a great question, too. And that's what, there were lots of people who, by the way, if you complained about the substitutions of Cáceres, or if you complained about Cuevas not playing, there were reasons for both of those, right? So Cuevas apparently the night before, so this would have been Thursday night into Friday morning, called the team doctor and said that he was sick. And the team doctor was like, don't come in. And so Friday morning, Greg Vanney, I think on Thursday, it sounded like Miki Yamane picked up and re-aggravated the bone bruise. So all of a sudden he's like, okay, well, Vanney's like, well, we'll put Cuevas in there and that'll work. And then he gets there in the morning and he finds out from the doctor that Cuevas isn't coming in because he's sick. And he's like, okay, I guess we're going to have to play Cerrillo out there on the right-hand side. And I was sort of surprised they didn't swing Cáceres out to the right side because he's played in that position at a high level.
Before, but I mean, 10 years ago.
that's sort of, Greg Vanney afterwards says, Martin at his age, I'm not sure he wants to be chasing guys around. It's totally understandable. Like, that works too, right? The whole deal. And so Cerrillo was put on that right-hand side. So absolutely one of those things is there. So you could see that. So you had that back line. Now, listen, I think if you take the balance on the whole of what Cerrillo did, Alex, I thought he was overall pretty good in what he wanted to do, especially when the Galaxy really had possession and he was able to play in that possession. I mean, he's a good passer. One is, I think he's very underrated as a young player, and this is a guy who's going to be in Major League Soccer, I think, for many years to come, if not go somewhere outside of the league in the next probably 3-4 years, right? So you see that. He did get beat for 2 goals in this game as well, if you go and watch. So it's like, but he's also like, no offense, but he's your height or, somewhere between our heights, right? And like, you're not going to be marking guys on headers for a lot of this stuff, but positioning was difficult for him. So trying to play in those spots I thought was difficult, but I still think he did a really good job. And what a Swiss Army knife he has been since he joined the LA Galaxy. And again, I think a lot of people sort of were not really sure what they were getting whenever they got some Edwin Cerrillo.
Yeah, I mean, definitely came into the season very underrated. Then, he had a really good couple of games with the LA Galaxy. And then now, like you mentioned, Josh, very much being that Swiss Army knife for the LA Galaxy. He had to play center back against LAFC.
Right.
Not an easy task to do. Now he's moving out to right back. And look, yeah, like you mentioned, he wasn't a liability, in my opinion. I didn't think he was a liability during the game. Obviously, he's not going to be like Miki Yamane making those, I won't say he makes very aggressive runs, but he knows where to be because obviously he's played the position for over a decade, right? Cerrillo very much laid back. Didn't push forward and make those darting runs that we're used to, right? Overlapping or inverting. Usually on the other side, you had Julian Alde doing that, and he's very good at that. So, again, you're good on that side. But, yeah, I mean, definitely needed a little bit better work on the positioning and how he used his body. But, again, it's not really his fault. He's not been trained his entire career to play this position. I mean, in the post game, he mentioned that he used to play as a winger, right?
Under Lucci. Yeah, Lucci, who's the head coach for San Jose now, so it was kind of funny. But I think U16s he played sort of as the wing.
And then U18s he moved into the center of the pitch.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Edwin's a very smart player, and I think that versatility is going to extend your career for a long time because coaches love that. They love to have a guy who can just stick anywhere. He knows where to be. And I think Edwin Cerrillo is going to be that as long as Gaston Brugman is starting at the 6 because he had an excellent game. And so far he's having an excellent season in my opinion. So I thought Edwin Cerrillo did a decent job out there. Obviously you're going to get Miki Yamane coming back, Mauricio Cuevas coming back. But nonetheless, good outing and good showing for Cerrillo.
You mentioned Brugman, and he was on my list of probably having, if you saw him play center back for the last 20 minutes, and everything else that he was able to do on the offensive end whenever the Galaxy were full strength, I thought between, like, you want to talk about guys who had their best games. I thought Gabriel Peck had one of his best games. I thought Gaston Brugman was probably the best player on the field on the night, and that's really hard to say whenever Riqui Puig was tearing through the center of San Jose's defense whenever they were down a man. The Galaxy are down to 10 men running through different things, and Riqui Puig is like, hop on my back, we're going. It didn't turn into anything, but in a lot of ways it played really well. You mentioned Julian Alde as well. Holy crap, the stop that he had in almost stoppage time, he takes the ball away from San Jose. That killed the game. That was it. It was over. And it's such a huge stop and one that maybe he hasn't made a lot. We talk about his physicality. We know he has a technical ability. We don't necessarily always talk about his defense, Alex, but I thought his defense was very good.
He's gotten much better at like closing down the spaces and blocking crosses. I think 1v1 he's pretty good as well, but I think the biggest improvement has been he's able to stick closer to a guy and he's not thrown off so easily. And again, that's exactly what you want to get from an outside back, especially when you invested for a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. San Jose Earthquakes lineup is up on the screen for you. I don't care, but I figured I'd show it to you guys because mostly we're going to be talking about the Galaxy here. But Pellegrino, I thought was going to be a problem. Espinosa, I thought was going to be a problem. Preston Judd subbed at halftime, by the way. So came on, was going to play against his old team, and then no gracias. Out he went, and sort of came in that, and so he didn't really get his I think his revenge that he wanted. But some crazy goals here. You want to talk about goals? Let's talk about the first LA Galaxy goal, because we talked about movement and speed and all the things that the Galaxy, in order to hit that next level, need to do. That first goal was sort of indicative of that, right? You have Maya Yoshida, who wins a header that was basically a clearance from the goalkeeper, right? Yoshida's header goes directly to Gaston Brugman. Brugman to Puig, basically one-touch trap. Puig one-touch to Joveljic, who was in the right spot. Joveljic just barely gets a good touch, but he knew what he was trying to do and where he was trying to play it, and it worked out perfectly. That brings Peck sort of on that overlap, outside to inside run, inside the box. And listen, is it lucky? Yes. But are you putting yourself in a dangerous position in order to force mistakes? 100%. So Yarborough comes out trying to knock that down. Peck gets to it. I think he may have even tried to chip him. Yarborough blocks it, and then it comes back, hits Peck on the foot, and goes back into the goal, right? And scores the first goal. There was a stat, Alex, that the LA Galaxy are among the most direct teams in Major League Soccer whenever it comes to scoring and everything else. This was very, very direct, very quick, and San Jose could not keep up with the passing. They were way behind it.
I mean, yeah, we in the post game, right? Multiple players were talking about if we can move at this speed, if we can move at this directness, we can be extremely lethal. And Puig and Brugman and even Joveljic in this play, right, show their technical ability and their ability to play one-touch soccer here and kind of create the spaces for themselves. And when you have players like Peck and Painter who make those darting runs, it's worth it to play like that because someone's at least going to be able to try to contest to get on the end of the ball. And we saw that with Peck, right? Like you mentioned, it was a bit lucky that finish and that goal, but I mean, he's the one who starts the run and he's the one who gets rewarded for it, right?
Yep.
Last year, right, Douglas Costa isn't making that type of run. He's instead cutting in, right, trying to play in that half space. Now you have Peck and Painter who aren't afraid to run at the back line, who aren't afraid, to move out the spaces a bit differently. So we're seeing the benefits of having those direct wingers in this game and in this goal in particular.
Yeah, it was an interesting one and a really quick strike. You talk about Paintsel coming in. We already talked about the play that happens before that eventually leads to the chicken wing handball on the set piece. Funniest thing though, that took almost a minute for them to call that and bring it back. We had
it
no
took a long
idea.
time.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
what
and
they
nobody
were
else was complaining about it either, right? I think it was just Paintsel, the one saying like, "Hey, he put his arm out." All the other players seemed pretty calm about it. Nobody was talking to the center referee.
Brugman was so it was funny because it got played and then all of a sudden they blow the whistle and the referee's going over it and we're all looking. I'm like, Damien, what's going on? Damien Calhoun was looking down at his computer and he looks up. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. And so we're all looking at each other and they're like, and then I saw Brugman running down the field and he was going like this. He was like showing the elbow, right? He was showing the elbow and I'm like, oh, I think somebody got elbowed, right? Like I was like, Brugman's saying somebody got elbowed.
That's what it was. Elbowed.
Yeah, I know. Well, it needs to give me some room. Back off. So you saw that, and then they said possible handball. I'm like, what? And then as soon as they showed the replay and you saw it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a handball. It's like clear as day. Okay, cool.
He's extending his arm, making himself bigger in the box. That's going to be a handball every day of the week.
Yeah, it absolutely was. So it was one of those. It was pretty funny, but yeah. So that's going to be one of those. Then we get to the Yoshida header. That again on another set piece, Galaxy on a corner kick. Yoshida jumps up, scores a goal. So now it's 3-0. The LA Galaxy are rolling. It's 30 minutes into this game. One of my friends texted me and said, start the buses. San Jose's on his way back. And I'm like, just pump the brakes a little on that because this is the Cali-Clasico and it usually gets a little crazy. Very quickly, San Jose gets that next goal back, right? And I'm going to say this, Alex, and people can disagree however they want to disagree. And a thing, we know the LA Galaxy have a problem defending set pieces. Everybody's very well aware.
Everybody and their mother.
Everybody in the league knows it. It's the Achilles heel of the LA Galaxy that's keeping them from being true title contenders at this moment, right? Because they have one of the most high power offenses. Their open play defense actually pretty good, right? It's just the set pieces and the things that happen. So here you go. Gaston Brugman fouls. deep in his side. There's a set piece that gets ready to come up. The Galaxy put a 2-man wall on it. The ball is kicked. It's kicked at the wall. It deflects off Gabriel Peck's back and back behind the line that advanced whenever it sort of got it. And so you had one San Jose attacker who was not attacking, basically. The ball went right to his head and in. I'm all for talking about set piece defense whenever I think there's marking mistakes or things happen that are sudden. I don't know how you defend against that, and I'm not gonna. I'm gonna say people were saying it's still a set piece goal. Absolutely, it's going to count as one. That's unlucky. Don't lump that in with the rest of the ones.
Context to that. Yeah. It's not like one of those where you can look at the box score, right, and say, oh, another set piece goal, right? This one deflected off a player. The line's in a totally different position. You got one guy who didn't make the run, who just snaps his neck, and it's in the back of the net, right? I wouldn't blame that on the marking or the players or a personal mistake. It was just an unlucky situation.
That was fine. And listen, if you want to call the San Jose second goal, where Peck was sort of limping, and then they took the foul call very quickly. If you want to call that a set piece goal, you can. To me, that's more open play. You let them play, and they're sort of in there, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Still has to be better. And that was the one where Cerrillo had no chance on the wrong shoulder, not a chance to sort of get up and get into anybody. He's not that tall. He's not going to make that run and that jump and that thing. And really, Maya Yoshida needs to come over and help him whenever that ball comes in, right? So sort of launch between the two. So now you were 3-1. Now all of a sudden, the LA Galaxy can score that fourth goal. It goes 4-1, 4-2, right? So now you're sort of in there. Now we get to the penalty kick, all right? Because Eric in our chat room gave us a $10 super chat, says, yes, it was a PK, but not a red card worthy yellow card. By rule, Eric, it's a red card, and it's a clear red card. It's not even hard. The only thing you can argue is that perhaps maybe Zavaleta wasn't holding him as much as it looked like, but it looked like he was holding him. It looked like he had, I think it was Abobasi who he ended up dragging down. Yeah. So he has his hand wrapped around his arms, both arms wrapped around Abobasi's arm. He's going to go down because he should go down. And if a Galaxy player didn't go down in that situation, I'd be like, why didn't you fall down? So it doesn't really matter. Here's the definition, though. It's supposed to not be double jeopardy. But in order for it to not be double jeopardy, which means you don't get a penalty kick and a red card, you have to go for the ball. And Eric Zavaleta wasn't anywhere near the ball. He comes on for Martin Cáceres in about the 61st minute, I believe.
Yeah, 61st.
Yeah, so he comes on in the 61st. And there was questions about that. Why are they doing that? Greg Vanney afterwards said that Cáceres asked for the sub, said he felt something. Greg Vanney wasn't sure what that something was, said he didn't think it was an injury, but that Cáceres asked to come out in order to make sure he didn't get more injured. And so that's why Zavaleta went in there. And again, the LA Galaxy have relatively no cover on the right back side. They have no cover on the center back side right now. So Eric Zavaleta has to come in that particular situation. So if you want to know why Greg Vanney made that sub, it was that reason, right? So,
and then you have Zavaleta coming off a concussion, right? He hadn't played in 2 weeks as well. So this is his first game time, first minutes in some time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, a $5 super chat from Adam. Adam says, I thought the Galaxy could have kept a clean sheet looking back at the first half before the second half started. Absolutely. I mean, listen, I think, I can't remember who said it. Maybe Maya Yoshida said he thought that the goals they scored were cheap. I think somebody used the
Maya
word
kept
cheap.
saying that during the press conference, right? Using that word cheap. And I think that very much describes the goals that we talked about earlier that they gave up. Definitely unlucky and also very cheap as well.
Yeah. So it was cheap, and I think they absolutely had a chance to keep that. So yeah, but when it comes down to Zavaleta coming into that spot, he was a step slower than everybody. You could see it, and whenever that happens as a defender, you're going to get in trouble. In hindsight, absolutely, he should have not grabbed the player and should have just tried to let him score. And at the worst case, it's 4-3, but at least you have 11v11. But it's 100% a red card. It can't not be a red card. It has to be a red card. So I had zero issues with that call. I thought it was the correct one. You don't need to relook at that over and over again on replay to see that one. So now the Galaxy, 20 minutes left in regular time. It ended up being 28 minutes left in the overall game, almost 29. Whenever you count it. Now they're playing and they're having to defend. We talked about Gaston Brugman coming back and playing center back, and it was funny because at one point Greg Vanney had John Nelson up, and then he had who else was going to come in and
Miguel Berry, I think.
Yeah, Miguel Berry was going to come in earlier and didn't, and then then sometimes Nelson got pulled back because Brugman went back to play center back. I think they were trying to figure out where to put somebody, and Aguirre got brought in because basically he was filling in for where Brugman was, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think Vanny was like, Gaston Brugman's going to go play center back, and that's going to be the answer. I think they were going to bring in John Nelson to go play center back, and then whenever Brugman went back there and was playing so well and was still able to get out and facilitate on some attacks and do some things, Vanny's like, okay, this is going to work. I think this is going to be fine. And so he pulled Nelson back down off the bench. Really interesting. Like stuff going on whenever you try to figure out all the ins and outs of everything that is.
Yeah, and that's the manager's job right there, to be honest. Deciding, having to read the game, deciding what subs to make. And, I thought Gaston did really good at center back. I thought, he wasn't a liability back there. And, again, he's very good with the ball at his feet. So, if, when you're a man down and you want to try to keep possession, he's the kind of guy you want to have the ball at his feet.
Yeah. Patrick, by the way, says if Zavaleva doesn't tackle Abobasi there, Abobasi buries that shot. Maybe, and then it would have been 4-3, but it would have been 11-11, and I put money on the Galaxy scoring another goal. Because they almost scored another goal whenever it was just 10 versus 11 a couple of times, especially with Riqui Puig on everything. Adam, by the way, $2 super chat. Guys, any update on Garces? If you listen to Greg Vanny on Thursdays, expected him in this week. There was reports out of Colombia, I believe, that he had departed and basically was headed this way, right? So we expect that to happen. Also, we talked about it, I think, on Thursday, that it's no longer a loan move, that it is that they have bought out Garces, bought him. Yeah, bought him. Not bought out, but bought Garces. And so I imagine that complicated paperwork and everything else going on because MLS had one deal and now they're going back and basically purchasing immediately. So that happened as well. Jalen Neal played in the first half of the VCFC game on Saturday. And I had some of our listeners were there and told me that they thought he looked fine, like he was ready to go and more than capable of going. So I do expect that you're going to see some Jalen Neal on Saturday. I don't know if he'll play, but he should be on the bench. And
they need the depth, right? They don't have a backup center back. And again, we don't know how serious it is with Martin Cáceres, but I mean, you still need to have that center back depth no matter what.
Yeah, and remember, Maya Yoshida's 6'2", right? So that's one of the taller guys because I think Cáceres is like 5'11" or 5'10".
Yeah, he's 5'10", 5'11".
He's so much bigger than that. That's not even funny. That dude seems like he's 6'4" if you ever stand next to him. He's a big guy. But you look at Garces at 6'1", so a little more size. Jalen Neal's in that 6 foot range, right? So right there. So you're gonna have, I think, a little more size. I'm just interested to see. So many people have talked about Aude and getting knocked off the ball and bumped off the ball and all these other things that sort of come with it, right? But he's been learning to be more physical and fight through things and everything else that's coming. Garces may have to have some of that as well, coming from where he's playing and more physical in Major League Soccer, and so there's going to be a learning curve there. I think we've all sort of looked at Jalen Neal and thought sometimes he needs to be more physical, although he certainly has started to look that part and play that part as well. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I think Garces is going to get some time here relatively soon as he comes in and sort of can get settled in with the club, but I don't expect to see him out on the field for the Galaxy in probably another 2 weeks at least. And that's if he arrives this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Garces is going to be a really good addition on there. He was really, in the tape that I watched, he was really great at kind of being a good defender in transition moments. And obviously we've seen the Galaxy struggle. And having guys like Cáceres and Yoshida with so much mileage on their legs who don't have that pace, you need a younger guy that can do that. I mean, Jalen's good physically, but I don't think he has that like recovery speed to go up against top wingers. Garces does have that, and like you mentioned, Josh, he does have that size, and the Galaxy definitely need that. We're talking about how bad they are at set pieces. They need to have that extra body, that extra person who can win and contest those aerial balls. Yeah,
it's something that has to happen, quite honestly. So the LA Galaxy last all the way through the 20 minutes, and then the 8 minutes on top of that. Again, I have no idea where 8 minutes came from. I would have said 5 or 6, no problem. I'm happy with that. 8 seems like somebody didn't do the math right. But that's where it landed. The LA Galaxy survived it, and it's 4-3. So when we look at this game, Alex, what do we take away from it? Can we take big things away from it? Do we take nothing away from it? I mean, the 3 points is big. It keeps them up at the top of the Western Conference, and quite honestly, if they continue sort of in this pace, you'd expect they're going to start putting some distance between them and, second place. It's going to start climbing if they can continue this.
Yeah, it's definitely like a mix of emotions because you're like, wow, this is great, right? The offense was great. You had all DPs scoring. But at the same time, you kind of you were biting your nails for those last 30 minutes. You kind of saw some of those goals, right? As Maya mentioned, cheap goals. And that worries you a little bit. So for me, when I'm watching this game, it was so conflicting because yes, it was great on the offensive end, and like we talked earlier, probably some of the best 30 minutes of soccer at the start, where they're playing at such a good and electric pace, controlled. They were kind of able to manage what San Jose was doing defensively with their press and their mid block, and then all of a sudden, right, it goes from chaos on the other end of the spectrum. And look, I view this, and I'm mostly a positive person, and I see the glass half full. I thought this was a good performance, and they went through some adversity, and they were able to, go through with it, right? I think a lot of the guys post-game mentioned they were proud of the team being able to finish out the game, right? Giving up those extra sprints, putting in that extra work to make sure San Jose didn't have those good golden chances. And John McCarthy made some good saves towards the later. Again, another very underrated guy so far. He made some great saves towards the latter stages of the game. So, yeah, I view this as like it's a good win, not a great win, but, I mean, you can't complain when you get all 3 points.
John McCarthy is one we didn't talk about. Has continued to come up with big saves when he needs to. Listen, the distribution hasn't been perfect, and I will also say that John McCarthy is definitely one of those guys who's more willing to kick the ball out of bounds and just get rid of it, and I don't hate it. I don't hate that. Like, it's not great. Sometimes you want to really keep possession and you want to do those things, and you want the distribution to be a little bit better. You want it to be a little bit more on point. There were a couple times when he did send them astray and they sort of went out of nowhere, and you're sort of like, well, that was sort of wasted. And yeah, you're going to get that. But also, whenever there's pressure, 9 times out of 10, he's booting it up forward, and I'll take that out of trying to play out of the back every single time.
You'd rather have your goalkeeper be a way better shot stopper than,
right?
With the ball at his feet. So right now, it's not something to, I don't say worry about, but definitely his biggest critique so far this season.
One of my favorites in the chat room, Cabral's son, Josh, could we win 3 in a row? Nobody tell Greg Vanny he's about to win 3 in a row.
Don't talk about it at all this week.
This is the moment, Alex. I would like to point out something that I keep this chart ready and handy. The LA Galaxy's longest single season win streak of every year. Since 2020, the LA Galaxy have been unable to win more than 2 games in a row. So 2020, they had 4 wins in a row. 2019, they won 5 games. Can you imagine winning 5 games? Wow, what a feeling that must be. 5 games in a row. But you look at this team in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. What do all those years have in common, Alex?
2.
Yeah, 2. 2, absolutely. Also, Greg Vanny in charge, right? So this has been his Achilles heel right here. This right here. Give me the answers to all this stuff right here. If he can win 3 in a row, he won't have to have me asking him that question anymore. When is this the one for 3 in a row? Is it important? It's more important for whenever I look at this, Alex. It's more important just in terms of what the LA Galaxy are currently doing. And I don't want to pretend even for a minute that the Galaxy are doing some crazy, ridiculous thing. Because if we go back over the years, they're not, right? 2021, they had 18 points through the 9 games, right? 2 points per game. Everybody was very excited about that, right? In 2022, not that long ago, 16 points through the 9 games. So nothing really crazy. In 2010, they had 23 points through this. I will tell you, this is starting to be on the upper echelon of those metrics, right? We are starting to crest into, okay, this might be something. I don't want to get you there. So if I don't want to tell you something, definitely don't look at this chart, which currently shows that the LA Galaxy, compared to their MLS Cup winning years, are basically tied with the best record out of any of the MLS Cup winning teams through 9 games. I don't want to tell you that, so pay no attention to it because it doesn't mean anything. Because if we plotted against all the LA Galaxy games over the top, they're in the top 1/3, Alex, right? They're in the top 1/3 of what is happening with teams. Does that mean anything? I don't know. You can follow some lines in there and trace them out. I will say this: it bodes very well for like postseason. Even just being in this spot, there are a few teams that were sort of in this position that collapsed all the way down in order to miss postseason. Not saying it can't happen to the Galaxy, just saying that it bodes well for them. So for me, those charts are starting to sort of bring stuff into focus, but 9 games in, we'd like to say it's too early, Alex, but 11 games is a third of the way through the season. We're almost a third of the way through the season.
Exactly. It's one of those stats where you're like, yeah, it does feel early in the season. You don't want to put too much weight on it, but as the games start to go and the weeks start to get closer, right, there's going to be a little bit more weight on how we look at that. And I think right now the expectation after these 9 games is like Galaxy should be having a home playoff game. I think that's the goal, and I think right now that's like the bare minimum considering their start, right? Top of the West, near the top of the Sports Shield standings. I mean, you want this Galaxy team, and we've seen that, players like Gabriel Pack and Joseph Painter, right, perform really good at home compared to on the road. So you want to be able to give those guys that home field advantage. And again, like we mentioned earlier, you had a sellout crowd at Dignity Health Sports Park. You had 25,000 people there. That place is becoming a fortress.
Yeah, it feels that way for sure. So we're gonna see how that goes. We had a question from Adam with a $5 super chat and then a little correction as well. So $7 total there for Adam. Guys, any thoughts on Saturday morning start, the Fox and Apple TV, and when did the Galaxy fly out to Austin? So I don't know. Did they release schedule today? I haven't seen.
I don't think they did.
I know what it is. So I wanted to make sure. I wanted to see if they released it because we were told. It looks like there'll be media availability on Wednesday. The LA Galaxy flying out on Thursday. So that means they fly out on Thursday. We'll train there on Friday, and then a 10:45 a.m. game on Saturday. Expect them to be back in Los Angeles Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon, that type of thing. So that's what it looks like right now. So that's when they'll fly out. And what do I think? I think it's way too early to be playing soccer. That's what I think. That's 10:45 is 12:45?
Yeah, 12:45 Austin time.
Somebody was like, well, it gets hot in Austin. I'm like, it's Austin. Play it at night then. Like, I don't know. This is
play at midnight again. Come on, guys.
That's fine. Who cares, right? Oh, man, do you remember that? That was fun. That was good times. Was that just last year that there were?
That was not that long ago, Josh. That was probably 4 months ago.
It feels 10 years ago that where were they playing that was it Kansas City? No, it wasn't Kansas City. It was somewhere in the Midwest though. Was it Austin? It wasn't Austin.
Was the 10 o'clock game?
Yeah, was it Austin?
Yeah, that was Austin.
Oh, it was Austin.
Austin.
Oh my God, it took
forever. Yeah, then you had, I think, was it Michael Barrios tying the game, dying minutes of stoppage time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was that game where it's delayed 3 hours, excuse me. Yeah. So.
3 hours, and it was the whole day. Yeah, then you could have played in the afternoon. But the LA Galaxy, it's early. I'll tell you this: I'm a big believer in body clocks, right? Like everybody has their own body clock, and I think that asking the LA Galaxy to play a game at 10:45 a.m. body clock time is ridiculous. But that's okay. The NFL, by the way, is big on body clock time. If you ever listen to schedules, they'll be like, "Oh, body clock is this time." Blah blah blah. You go east. And you're still it's still early. So most of the time, the West Coast team should have a little bit of an advantage, even though you're traveling all the way across the country. And like East Coast teams coming out and playing at 7 o'clock, well, that's 10 o'clock body clock time. I have to imagine that professional sports players are like night owls and that they don't go to bed till like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And then, then they go to sleep and then they get
that's what I would do. And that's why I'm not a professional.
Yeah, right. You can't handle it, right? So yeah, it'll be one of those. So really interesting. I would like to take away, and Steven gave us a $5 super chat, said Zavaleta is such a wild card. Yes and no though. This is a guy who's been very solid this year, and when he comes off the bench, is more or less is probably going to settle a game. Yeah, he's fine. Again, I don't know what you want from the third string center back that's making like league minimum the whole deal. I know everybody wants to complain that he's only on there because he's Vanny's nephew, and I'm like, he played for El Salvador on the national team, and by the way, they liked him there, right? Like people talk to me all the time about how much they love that he's on the El Salvador national team and how he played there and really liked it. He's not a wild card. I think Mavinga was a wild card. Yeah. Mavinga was way up and down, left and right.
Way more on like the spectrum of very good and very bad. I mean, he was at this game, right? We saw the photo.
He was, yes. Did anybody? If people probably didn't even notice, if you saw the after game photo, or at least one of the after game photos, somebody's holding up a Riqui Puig number 10 in the middle of sort of the pile in the middle of the floor. It is Chris Mavinga. He's like, and he even commented, I think, on Instagram or somewhere. He's like, I'm still one of you guys. Like he's still
and he's showing Greg Vanny memes as well in the locker room.
Why not? But yeah, was he showing the one with?
The one of the little Yachty meme where he comes out and he's dancing and they put a Greg Vanny thing over it.
That's such I love that video. I laughed so hard whenever I saw that. No, it's fun that everybody was sort of having fun with it. So I am less of a Zavaleta as such a wild card. I mean, if you don't like him, the good news is he won't be playing next game. So I mean, that's something. I think that's bad news for the LA Galaxy.
I mean, this red card was, let's be honest, it's the only real blemish of the season.
For him right now, right?
For him right now, yeah. But yeah, he's been servable. He's making league minimum. I mean, what other guys in MLS can you point to that are making league minimum that can put up these kinds of serviceable performances?
Let's talk about designated players, by the way. I'm going to talk about my designated player stat, and then you talk about your designated player stat, because yours is so much better. I don't want you to go before mine. The LA Galaxy right now with Joseph Paintsill, Gabriel Peck, and Riqui Puig, now averaging 84.6% available. So of the available minutes, of the total 810 available minutes, the LA Galaxy's designated players have played 84.6% of those. So you take 810 times 3, which gets you 2,430 total available minutes, and the LA Galaxy's designated players have played 2,056 of those minutes, which again is 84.6. That's so high off the chart. It's stupid ridiculous. All right. I'm also going to give you this stat from Mr. Kevin Acevedo, the LA Galaxy's biggest hype man in the communications department. Against San Jose, the Califs each recorded a goal in the same game for the first time this season. In 5 games played in the same starting 11 dating back to March 23rd, Paintsill has notched 2 goals and 3 assists. Peck has recorded 2 goals and 1 assist, and Puig has registered 1 goal and 5 assists. So that is your designated players playing against San Jose. Alex, I asked you because I didn't have time to look it up, but I said, man, it's gotta have been. Let's tease it. Don't give the answer. I want to see if the chat room can come up with it too. When was the last time 3 LA Galaxy designated players, so all the designated players for the LA Galaxy, scored in 1 game? Were you surprised that it was that far? Because I was not. I was like, it had to have been somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was looking through, right? And obviously you kind of have some DPs that aren't goal scorers, like, Jonathan Dos Santos, right? So, I mean, I thought it would be a lot harder to find it, but it really wasn't if you kind of knew how to search through the data. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing,
right?
But I was genuinely surprised with how far back it was. And, we've seen like these DPs, some good ones like Zlatan. You had Alessandrini, who was very reliable for some years.
Right.
Gio Dos Santos as well.
Right.
Other ones as well. And I'm just like, man, how far back is this going?
Right. You think about some of the best moments for the LA Galaxy too, like the first El Tráfico. Remember that Giovanni Dos Santos and Jonathan Dos Santos both missed that game and were sitting in the stands, and Zlatan had his game, right? Like, that's nuts to me whenever you start thinking about that.
Yeah, and then you have Zlatan wasn't a DP, right, for that 2018 season.
Yep.
So I couldn't count him in there.
Nope.
So I had to like double check and triple check for like all the past seasons who was a DP, who wasn't. So that kind of helped out a little bit. Because there were moments where I'm like, oh, yeah, here it is. But I was like, oh, wait, Zlatan was on a TAM deal back in 2018. Right. So he doesn't count.
All right.
So it was interesting.
Here are the guesses. We have 10 years ago, which was 2014. Steve says 2014. Romazeus says 2016. Mr. Ravino says 2012 Portland. Scott says 2012. Jeff says 2016. Lou says 2011. Victor 2017. Victor 2014. What is 2014 from I Got Jams? Alex, tell him when it was.
Yeah, so the last time all LA Galaxy 3 DP scored in an MLS game was on Sunday, May 18th, 2016, in a 4-2 home win over the New England Revolution. You had Robbie Keane, Steven Gerrard, and Gio Dos Santos scoring in that match.
That feels like it was 100 years ago. So 2016. 2016 is the answer. That's how long. I mean, you're approaching 10 years. Like,
it's 8 years ago.
Right? It's 8 years ago. That feels like a lifetime ago. But also, you go back to 2016, that was still under Bruce Arena. Basically, the LA Galaxy have not had 3 designated players all score in the same game, mostly because it was hard to get 3 designated players on the field for the LA Galaxy at the same time for most of the time since 2016, 2017, 18, 19. You would have thought something in there with like 19 would have worked itself out, but it didn't, right? And 2020 with Chicharito and 2021, just it goes on, and that's so much time for people to have sat through the LA Galaxy's designated players not scoring goals. 2016 is a crazy number because it feels like it was 2 years ago. 2016 was almost 8 years ago, right? It's one of those weird time warp things, but 2016, it's a crazy stat to me, Alex. It feels real. Like, if you're like, yes, that is correct, right? It's one of those where you're like, it's
you're
a really long
it.
time. No, you're there. You're locked in. So, yeah. How many goals did Gerrard score for the LA Galaxy? I don't know. I have to look it up. You have it. You're like, don't worry. I'll look.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
I know.
But yeah, it was easier to kind of look through because I just had to look through Steven Gerrard. How many times did he score like a goal, right? And because he didn't score that many. Right. Yeah, in this game, I think Robbie Keane had 2 goals in this one.
Of course.
And then Gerrard actually he had his goal in stoppage time, 3 minutes afterwards. So I could have kept going even more back. if he didn't score in this game.
Ooh, it was an interesting one. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting stat to sort of pull out, to take a look at. I'm trying to see if there's any other ones I really want to sort of... The LA Galaxy, in terms of their home points right now, averaging 2.00 points per game at home currently, also averaging the 2 points per game overall. The LA Galaxy actually 2 points on the road as well. So just seeing all of this and lining up is really interesting to see. 10 points on the road right now. The LA Galaxy 8 points at home. The crazy thing to me, Alex, is once again, LA Galaxy on the road this weekend, on the road next weekend.
Yeah.
So many road games. It seems unbalanced. Like it's never going to balance itself out. It's like, where are all the home games coming? They're coming, but we're just not there yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, right, Gabriel Peck, much better player at home compared to on the road, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he just finds that extra gear in front of Galaxy fans. And I've been talking about it recently. I wrote an article, I think about a week ago, right, talking about Gabriel Peck and, them playing the overload with Peck and Paint Soho. I'm not too fond of it. But yeah, coming back home, Gabriel Peck just seems to find that extra gear, find that extra confidence. And I think, once those home games start to come approaching, we're going to see a bit more of that consistency. And we're going to see, like, more solid home wins, right? Because I still feel like, obviously they just have 2 wins at home, but they're not those convincing wins that you want to get, right? Those 3-0 wins, 2-0 wins even. They need to find that convincing home win and that convincing home form.
Yeah, waiting for that. By the way, Pottermus said, Josh, do you think after the game players were relieved to win or just happy? I wouldn't say they were relieved. It wasn't like there was panic. I think there was some real... Listen, there was disappointment. They didn't want to play like that. And Greg Vanney was like, hey, we need to be more mature with our choices. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think this is good and sometimes it's bad. But when Greg Vanney came out and talked to us, you listen, and then you go and you hear what he clearly said in the locker room because the guys come out and say sort of the same stuff. But like when Maya Yoshida says it, it's because he knows it's true, right? You might question a younger guy like Cerrillo. Is he saying it because he knows it's true or because Greg just told it to him, that type of thing? But when Yoshida says it, so I think there's a real understanding that they're disappointed in their lack of discipline, I would say, because Vanney was very pointed afterwards, Alex, and he was saying, everybody thought that there was going to be, 12 goals in this game, and they were just going to, go out and play and run and just score a whole bunch of goals. There's goals for everybody, that type of thing. And he's like, instead, we should have just managed the game, and if we would have managed the game, we shouldn't have let them back into this game, really. And remember, the red card happens at the same time as the third goal. So the Galaxy allowed, 2 full strength goals, 1 penalty kick before, the penalty kick's not really a power play type of goal there, right? If you're going to use that. So for me, it was like the Galaxy gave up 3 full strength goals in this game, and it's 4-3. You can't do that.
Yeah, the most disappointing part, too, was, right, they were kind of right after the Galaxy goals, right? The first one and then the second one as well. I think that's the part that Greg Vanney talked about, where he was very disappointed, right? Where they just couldn't hold on to, their 3-goal lead for a bit longer. And, whenever Maya Yoshida talks, you can really tell, he has a good grasp of the expectations he holds for the rest of his teammates, for the club, and for the club to be MLS Cup contenders. And he's very blunt, and he says what, was on his mind, and I think that's very good insight, especially from a guy like Yoshida, who is their leader, who is their captain, and who is the guy that has I think the most experienced player on the LA Galaxy, right, playing at such a high level, playing in different international tournaments. So yeah, you get to really see and kind of feel that whenever Maya Yoshida talks about, when we talked in post game about games, and you can generally gauge how the team is feeling through him when he talks.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was Adam, by the way, $2 super chat opinion on how Diego Fagundes will do on his return. Awesome. By the way, guy we didn't talk about who came into the game who played really well, Diego Fagundes. I thought he was great. By the way, Miguel Berry, dude may not be able to hit the broadside of the barn with a shotgun. I mean, I have seen no goal dangerous really from him at all. But man, will he hustle whenever he's trying to kill a game out. There is zero stopping that dude.
He's got great cardio.
He's got great cardio. By the way, huge support from the LA Galaxy, from the rest of his teammates as well. The game was over. Riqui Puig went and jumped on him, that type of thing. And the Barcelona connection sort of still alive and well with those two. But just the fact that you see these guys, really fighting for each other. There was one point, we talked about Martin Cáceres and coming off because there was a possible injury and all that stuff. Dude did not stay sitting on the bench the entire rest of that game.
He was like a player manager the entire game, right? Walking there. I think he was there talking to, the midfield and Gaston yelling at him, right? Telling him how to give directions. I mean, he's just such an animated figure and such a guy that, you want to be his teammate, right? I don't want to be playing against Martin Cáceres because I'm running the other way.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was one of those. No, I'm just asking about Diego Fagundes. I thought he had a really good game. I think he's going to do just fine going back. I think he loves the fans in Austin. I've said this before. He loves the fans in Austin. I think he's very much still aggrieved of how he was moved out and when he was moved out and everything else. So I think there's some, not bad blood, but there's a little bit of a grudge there. There's a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, he wants to prove some people in the front office wrong.
Yeah, he's ready to. So I'm ready to see it. And listen, he may tell you, people are going to ask him the whole deal, and he may say, I won't celebrate and all that stuff. And that's cool because I think he has respect for the fans and doing that type of thing. But if Diego Fagundes scores, you can guarantee he's going to be pumped up about it in the whole
I wouldn't be surprised to see any stare downs, right in the suites or at the touch line.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. You could see it happening. So one of the other bits of news before we get too far away from everything, I'm trying to think, did I want to get through any more charts? I had some other charts that I was sort of like, oh, these are starting to get interesting. The LA Galaxy goals, 21 goals scored, 15 goals against, so +6 on the goal differential. Just if the whole season ended right now, that would be the Galaxy's second best goal differential at the end of the year since 2017. Right, so again, into the Bruce Arena years in 2016, they were +15. Was the last time they were had a really big plus side on the goal differential. In 2018, they were +2. 2022, they were +7. If it all ended right now, they would be +6, and that would be great because last year they were -16. 2020, they were -19. 2017, they were -22. So the fact they're scoring a lot of goals is really awesome, but what does it mean whenever we're looking at giving up goals, right? So goals for, goals against. The light blue is your goals against. The dark blue is your goals for. So the goals for are on the bottom. So the LA Galaxy scoring 51, 58, 50 goals. They're at 21 through 9 games. I don't need to tell you that they're well ahead of pacing on some of this. And if we want to predict it out, Alex, we can currently through 9 games tell you the LA Galaxy are on pace to score 80 goals this season. Should we go back and look at the goals? Just what does 80 goals mean? Oh, that's right. It would be gigantic. All right.
Look at this year so far, right? It's like a third of the way for most seasons.
But I mean, it's more than a third. They're
even half for some campaigns as well.
They're well ahead of everything right now. The only LA Galaxy team to have ever gone above 80 goals in a season was in 1998, where they finished. And by the way, we don't even call this the modern era. There were shootouts and everything else in there, right? 98, 85 goals. The LA Galaxy in 2024, with predictions being what they are, and these are straight predictions. We're just predicting how many goals they've scored per game and multiplying it by 34 games. There's no algorithm in here that's going to tell us, oh, well, teams usually do this or do that. No, this is straight up guessing. We're showing you that what you're watching right now could be one of the most prolific offenses in LA Galaxy history. We'll see if that holds up. But it doesn't seem like it's slowing down, Alex. I only expect them to score more, quite honestly.
I know. We're talking about how they haven't even reached their ceiling yet, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine when they do, and that's going to be insane. But we also got to talk about how's the defense going to hold up, right? Because you can't win every game 4-3.
Well, let's look at that. Let's predict it out. 56.7 right now. And we're saying, okay, so how does that sort of look toward past years? And we can sort of go in here. Last year, they gave up 67. In 2022, they gave up 51. So you're in between those two right now. But the bottom line is that you scored 58 goals in 2022. You scored 51 goals in 2023. And right now, you're on pace to score 80. If your defense doesn't change, and let's say the defense is still bad, right? Let's say it's not good. I actually think it's okay. I think the set-piece goals have been exaggerated so far in the first 9 games. I'm hoping I'm correct, right? It just feels like it's something that can't continue. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, on the offensive side, you're like, I actually expect them to score more goals because they're starting to click now. So as you're looking at it, but even if the defense stayed the same, let's say they allow 67 goals again. Well, they're on pace to score 80. I mean, we don't love the track meets, Alex, and you don't want to win every game 4-3. And, in the playoffs, that becomes a lot harder to do, right? You need to have sort of a solid defense in there. But I'm not saying that the defense is the same as last year. I think the defense is dramatically improved from last year. I think the set piece goals are throwing that off, and they have to fix that.
Yeah, they're very much, the set piece goals are very much like a mirage to the real LA Galaxy defense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like we've said in multiple podcasts before, like in open play, they're doing a really good job. And, the goals that they gave up in open play, the second one, Mickey Amane is usually at that spot, right? He'll probably cover that a little bit better than Edwin Cerrillo. So, I'm more excited to see how the defense evolves than seeing the LA Galaxy reach their top ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Let's get to a little bit more news before we get you to standings and schedule and get you out of here. But just a quick little update. We knew that the LA Galaxy and Riqui Puig were in contract negotiations. Riqui talked about it and sort of hinted at it. I think Greg Vanney talked about it and said, we think we're going to be able to get a deal done. Well, according to Mr. Tom Bogert, the LA Galaxy and Riqui Puig have agreed to a new deal. His deal was supposed to expire at the end of the 2025 season, so the LA Galaxy and Riqui Puig have come to a new deal. What the details of that are still to be determined, but I knew this coming into this year is that Riqui Puig was going to be a full designated player. There was no like, oh, you can tam him down and stuff like that. So already with all the performance stuff that he had sort of put in, he was going to make, I think, close to $3 million is sort of what I was told. We'll see if that holds up. I would imagine the new deal is going to be somewhere in the 3 to 4.5 range. It's going to tack on some extra money, extra years on that. And the only reason that's really important, Alex, is because they'll want to sell him. And whenever they sell him, having those extra years on there is like putting money in the bank. So this was a big deal for the Galaxy to get and to pay somebody like Riqui Puig what he's worth. And he is... The only thing going against Joseph Paintsel and Riqui Puig right now, in my mind, for battling for MVP is that they play on the same team, and that's going to come down to something. There's going to be an issue between those two. Maybe one of them will separate themselves from the other, and that makes it a little bit easier. But for the most part right now, neck and neck for me in terms of MVP.
Yeah, I think it was a good move by the LA Galaxy. Obviously, Riqui Puig just mentioned his ambitions to return to Europe. That's no secret at all. Whenever he's had the opportunity to talk about it, he mentions it. And that's very much you see it, right? He's a driven player. He's a guy who, will put everything out on the field. And I think he does have that chip on his shoulder after how it all ended with his boyhood club in Barcelona. And I think, this is great because, as we mentioned, right, Galaxy kind of near the top Supporters Shield standings. And usually the team after that ends up being the Supporters Shield winner. You see a lot of their key players move, right? Like last year with Cincinnati, you had Alvaro Barreal, right, make that big move. He was rumored to go to Ajax and other European clubs. Ended up going to Brazil. I mean, years prior, right? Dejan Buchanan, who made the move to Europe and in the Belgian club. And you also got to see, right, players from LAFC when they won their Supporters Shield. That team got picked apart as well. So I think if the Galaxy do end up being the top team, winning that Supporters Shield, we're going to see, Riqui Puig, right? I don't think Painsel's a one and done for the Galaxy. He's going to be here for a couple more years.
Yep.
But Puig definitely seems like the type of guy who, if he has a good, rest in 2024. It wouldn't surprise me if he's at a European club next season.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a really fun one to watch. Also, huge shout out. I know that I'm going to make a big deal about this, whether or not anybody else makes a big deal about this, but we know. I listen, as somebody who speaks one language poorly, Alex.
Oh yeah.
I want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Riqui Puig doing his press conference in English flawlessly. No issues, and we've known this about him, and we've been like poking him, like, come on, man, you got to do it in English, and he did it wonderfully, amazing, and I will always applaud that because I know how hard that. I mean, not everybody's Maya Yoshida and can speak 12 different languages, right? But some of these guys coming in here, it's daunting to be in front of the press, have to be worried about what you're going to say. Everybody knows that whatever you say in English or in Spanish is going to be broadcast across the world when you're Riqui Puig, right? So
exactly.
It's never, but he did a great job, and I'm just always going to be a supporter of that because I think, listen, MLS media is not the hardest. We're not going to be the meanest people out there. This isn't the NFL. We're not going to yell and scream. Generally speaking, we want you to feel comfortable whenever you're asking questions.
Yourself.
Yeah, be yourself and come out, and seeing Riqui does
yeah, it was good to see him speaking English, right? Obviously, he knows the words and stuff. Obviously, he's not going to know like the super complex words, right? So don't be asking him questions with like super complex words. But I think that it's good to see him speaking English, and we've had a couple other reporters, right, talk about how this is a good thing for marketing for himself. So I think he's taking that advice.
It is very good for him on the marketing side as well. So awesome. Gets the new contract, all that fun stuff. Let's get you to the standings. Not that you didn't know already. Western Conference, LA Galaxy, 18 points. 2 points clear of Vancouver right now. Vancouver, one less game, so tied on points per game, both at 2. But that is top in the West. Then it's Real Salt Lake, who's coming up not too far in the distant future for the LA Galaxy. And then
next home game, I believe.
Yeah, the next home game, as a matter of fact. Away to Austin, away to Seattle, home to RSL is the plan on that. So RSL in there, Colorado at 15 points. So you got both of the Rocky Mountain Cup contenders right next to each other, with Colorado making huge strides early in the season, 1.67 goals per game. Points per game. 2-1-1 at home, 2-1-2 on the road. You're seeing a lot of teams being successful on the road so far. Minnesota, 3-1-0 on the road. They're currently at 14 points. Houston, 13 points. LAFC at 12 points. Austin at 12 points. St. Louis at 12 points. Kansas City at 11. Portland at 10. Seattle at 6. Dallas at 5. And San Jose, number 14 there. Number 3. I saw Robert Jonas, who covers the San Jose Earthquakes and has for a while. I love Robert, was talking about San Jose and saying how it didn't look like a first versus last sort of game. And I will say 2 things to that. One is Galaxy gave San Jose a lot of lifelines to try to come back in that game. And for the first 30 minutes, it absolutely looked like a number 1 versus a number 14 or a number 29 in this league. It's just MLS is tends to be fairly even.
That's just
even
MLS,
across that.
baby.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to sort of watch. On the Eastern Conference side, Miami, who currently leads in the Supporter Shield, as a matter of fact, at their 1.8 points per game, but at least leading in that Eastern Conference. And listen, I think the Eastern Conference, Alex, when you look at Miami, when you look at New York, you look at Cincinnati, you look at Columbus, the whole state of Ohio is right there, being a very good soccer team right now. Toronto coming in and playing some very good soccer all of a sudden under John Herdsman. So that's something. Philadelphia is always going to be there. Atlanta is sort of stuck in between. Really good games, really bad games, like somewhere in between, but 11 points. I can go through Miami, New York, Cincinnati, Columbus. I will maybe put Toronto in there, but Philadelphia for sure. I can get you 5 or 6 really good teams in the Eastern Conference. I'm not one who likes to subscribe, Alex, to sort of the East Coast bias, but in this particular case, I think it might be true, because I look at LA and Vancouver. They're still flawed teams in my mind. They're not complete, and you can look at Cincinnati or Columbus as some of the better, more complete teams on that Eastern Conference. I mean, is it fair to say that the Western Conference feels a lot weaker right now? It feels softer?
There's a lot more questions about the Western Conference than there are the Eastern Conference, right? Like in the East, you have your established teams like a Philadelphia, like, Atlanta, right? They've been having Giakoumakis and Almada for a while, Cincinnati and Columbus. The only teams with real questions in that top half are, Miami because of the health and the age of their superstars, New York, right? How sustainable is playing that very high and press resistant and that pressing style? And, New York City and Charlotte, you still have those questions about, are those teams really that good? I think on the Western Conference side, I mean, people still have their questions about the LA Galaxy, about Vancouver, about Colorado, about Houston, about LAFC, right? About both St. Louis and Austin. I think there's the one team I think that's really, really solid, aside from the LA Galaxy, that puts a little bit of fear in me is Real Salt Lake. Just because they have Chicho Arango playing at an MVP level and they have a good supporting cast around him. But aside from that, no other teams in the Western Conference really put that much fear inside me.
The LA Galaxy and RSL, looking at those two being matchups, it feels like it's 2009, 2010 all over again. When every time LA,
we're going back in time a lot in this podcast, man.
Right?
Talking about the last time all DPs were on the field.
Jason Kreis in charge over at Real Salt Lake.
Exactly,
rampant.
He's there as an assistant.
Yep, 2009 MLS Cup and Real Salt Lake and the LA Galaxy. It would be nice to have that stirred back up. I always enjoyed seeing the LA Galaxy and Real Salt Lake play. I'm waiting to see that. Listen, I think Vancouver is going to be an okay team. Some people are saying Vancouver's for real. I just think they had too many home games to start, and that really sort of tweaked the view of them. So I think they're more towards the middle than they are the top, but they're right there. So let's give them credit for being right there. You would hope that currently right now the LA Galaxy's points are technically being suppressed by the fact that they're playing on the road, right, Alex? It's like,
yeah,
that there's probably a regression to the mean and some other things that you could sort of look at, right? But for me, I look at that and say, really, the LA Galaxy should have a really good chance of having a ridiculously good home record this year and a very good away record. And if you combine those two things, you're in space, because they don't seem to be something Maya Yoshida said that sort of ticked in my brain, and I heard him say it, and I was like, this is what they believe, and I think it could be true, but he sort of talked about tactically they feel like they can sort of move around anybody they want to, right? Like, he's like, tactically we can figure them out. Like, it's not going to be, it doesn't matter who it is, tactically we will figure out how to break them down. We're a smart team, we're quick. Like, I'm sort of inferring all the things he says from this, but tactically we're a good team. He even talked about the San Jose game, and he says, we thought they were going to press a lot more, and they sat back, and he's like, and that's fine, we can break that down too. It was sort of like, okay, so we adjusted and we came out and we played differently, and he goes, and then they did press, and he's like, and we were ready for that too. It's like he's sort of saying, I'm not afraid of what teams can do right now. I think that we're smart enough to figure it out. But listen, there's going to be hard times. It's not going to be this good forever, LA Galaxy fans. This is a really good start. Could the Galaxy run through everything? Yeah, the likelihood of that happening with 29 teams in Major League Soccer and the parity that is there is difficult.
Yep, and then you're going to have games, 3 games a week, right? So you're going to see the fitness, the players being challenged. You're going to see the international tournaments start racking up as well, who gets called up, right? You also got to take in mind the Olympics. So Galaxy do have some young players that could be called up into that as well. So, right now it's definitely looking good, but you got to wait like at least 1 or 2 months to really truly see a lot more of what the Galaxy is made of. Yeah,
I'm waiting to see it. The whole deal. By the way, and Cabral's son said, we couldn't do that against LAFC though. Yeah, because when you play bad, it doesn't matter whether or not, like, you may be able to figure it out, but if you're not executing, you're not going to be there. I don't think the Galaxy are going to get outsmarted by a team, right? I haven't seen that yet, which is different than maybe in the past. I have seen the Galaxy.
It feels more of those individual moments and mistakes have been their Achilles heel rather than them breaking down tactically and having those meltdowns in transition, in possession. I'd rather have those kind of individual mistakes than, having those holes that are constantly being, used by other teams to gain an advantage.
Yeah, get your super chats in, by the way. Getting ready to wrap up the show here. Just a couple minutes. We're going to be talking about schedule. But if you have any other questions for me or Alex, the super chats are open, and now is your time. Looking again at the schedule, we go and see that April is almost done. Interestingly enough, Alex, my favorite chart that I bring up, you look at the LA Galaxy. They started April with a loss against LAFC. Now 2 wins in a row. We talked about it. 3 wins could possibly close out April. But when we're looking at the number of games in each month, you had 5 in March. April was relaxed. This was the 4, right? There's only in September you're going to get 4 games again. Outside of that, it's still pretty busy. The only reason October has 3 is it will end earlier. All right, so don't read into that too much. If you look at what the LA Galaxy are possibly doing, getting 3 wins in a row after starting the month with a loss, that's great. Then you go May with 6 games, June with 5 games, July with 5 games. August with 1 game, remember, because we have Leagues Cup in there, right? So that'll go all the way through the end of August, and then you get into September. Yeah, I wasn't wrong, by the way. Leagues Cup comes back, and there's 7 or 8 games left.
Yeah.
It's nothing. The season is going to be almost over. There's going to be less than a third of the games left whenever they come back from Leagues Cup. That's nuts to me, Alex, because that means your transfer window that you're going to hit in July, right, which has 5 games, means you're only going to get about 5 or 6 games in before Leagues Cup kicks off, and then that's it. You're going to be shut down, and there's going to be no league games for a month, which means that all of these teams trying to make big changes aren't going to have the games probably to gobble up to do it. That to me really shortens the year this year.
Yeah, and it's also interesting too, right? Because Leagues Cup takes up a whole month of the season. So do you want to go long in Leagues Cup to have that match sharpness, or do you kind of want to not really, so you can have a bit of a breather after playing all these games and stuff? So it's a bit of, juggling 2 thoughts right there and how the Galaxy are going to approach it. But it'll be interesting to see just how far the run in Leagues Cup goes. I mean, the group stage looks pretty interesting so far.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I think there's some real questions about whether or not you even want the Galaxy to play well and do and could advance in that tournament. But
think about it last year, right? Gaston Brugman got hurt in Leagues Cup. So do you want to risk a key player like him or anybody else getting injured in these kind of games?
I will say this, and a coach told me this, a player can get injured getting out of bed in the morning. So, you probably shouldn't worry. Yes, there's a higher chance in a game than getting out of bed. But it's sometimes you just play the games. You just got to, it doesn't matter. And you sort of got to play through it. So, that's what we're thinking there. Last, looking at May and what that schedule entails, away to Seattle, then the LA Galaxy home to RSL, away to Minnesota, away to Charlotte. Again, away games. And then home to close out against the two teams from Texas. Two of the three teams from Texas. Forgot about Austin there for a second. But the LA Galaxy will host Houston and then host Dallas to close out May. So that's where we got. $5 super chat from Lasso's Optimism here. Glad to be back and looking forward to watching this episode. Loving me some LA Galaxy. Keep up the great work, gents. Go Galaxy. All right. So in there. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Alex, you try to wrap up this win. It's a good one. Galaxy now transitioning into the Austin game. Is 3 wins in a row important to the LA Galaxy at any point? Does it really matter? Is it a stat they're paying attention to? Or is it more about taking a team like Austin, who has struggled? You get to go back with Diego Fagundes on a high. That dude could score 20 goals if you know, in the game, if you really get him. I mean, you know, how important is 3 wins? How important is an away game at Austin right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, this Galaxy team wants to be able to break the mold of the last couple of years, right? And you do that by getting a 3-game win streak. You do that by breaking these records, right? Earlier in the season, we saw the one record with Greg Manny breaking it against Peter Vermes, right? Where he had gone, I think, 9-11 games without winning against him. And he did that. Now you want to be able to take that with the team, get 3 straight wins. You know, we're seeing the 3 DPs score. We're seeing, right, a player like Diego Fagundes come into this game very motivated. You're seeing Dejan Joveljic, right? Didn't score last game, but I thought had a decent outing on the ball, right? Yeah. I didn't think he was sure. You can mention he goes a bit missing, but at the same time, he, you know, is involved in the buildup.
One of his best games this year by far is against that San Jose game. Involved in buildups, good passing. The 4th goal the LA Galaxy got, which I don't even think I talked about, was such a master class in using space and passing and getting Peck. And listen, I think Peck made the wrong pass. I would have tried to get it across the Paintsel, who was wide open. But he fed it to Riqui Puig, and I've been saving this line. Riqui Puig with a little Top Gun flyby, hit the brakes and let him fly right by. Yeah. It was absolutely amazing. Such a great goal. So anyway, but that was Joveljic led that attack. Let time develop, let space develop, made the right pass, was there in the right times. And
we got to make sure he gets his flowers for this game, because I thought he had a really good performance that went under the radar. Yeah, absolutely. Patrick, by the way, says Austin is a crap team. Beating crap teams is important. 100%. If you're a good team, got to beat bad teams. You're still going on the road. Yeah, Austin's finding a bit of momentum lately, right? They've climbed up from being at the bottom.
They've felt a little better, right? I mean,
yeah, a little better. I mean, it's not great, right? You still have, you know, it's like when you scratch off a scab and then you get a new one. That's kind of basically what Austin's doing right now at the moment. Yep. But yeah, it's definitely one of the toughest away trips to make. So, I mean, a good test for the LA Galaxy in a tough environment.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. We'll have a show on Thursday to get you ready for that Austin game, so look forward to that as the LA Galaxy get ready to play Austin at 10:45 on Fox, on Apple TV, on Saturday, April 27th, all right?
Get your breakfast burritos, right?
Oh, man, it's mimosa time, you know? Whenever there were the early games back at Dignity Health Sports Park, they would play at maybe like 12:30. I think there was there ever like an 11 o'clock game? There's something like super early.
I remember the playoff game, the last home one against Nashville. That one was at 12.
12, yeah. So I mean, you know, that's fun. That's good. Breakfast burritos, mimosas. You're in. That's a good one. So, you know, that's what's going to happen, and so we'll get to see how the LA Galaxy play against Austin, and maybe a little bit of a reaction on the defensive side. That's what I want to see. Next step, give me a clean sheet. I want another one.
You've seen like those clips, right, on the match recaps, right, where Riqui Puig is like set pieces, right before the team huddle breaks.
Yep.
So you got to be able to see if those, you know, Riqui Puig set pieces reminders start working.
I think we should make a set pieces shirt. It just says set pieces on it, and then rock and roll. What do you think? You good?
I mean, I would definitely get that. I mean, if it works, if everybody wears that to the stadium, maybe that'll be what solves the problems. I mean, everywhere you look, the players are going to see set pieces, and hey, got to defend those.
Hey, what do you know? You have to stop goals from going into the net. That's how it works, right? You score more goals, and then you let less goals in. Galaxy currently riding on the correct side of the formula, though at +6. But if they start developing that defensive ability, I'm telling you, next echelon in terms of what the results will be. The games will be a lot easier. That game at 3-0 should have been over, and that was what I was calling for on that Thursday show is get out in front, make games short, don't make yourself play well into stoppage time. They had to play well into stoppage time. They let them back in. Don't let them back in once you shut the door. And I don't think they let off the gas. I actually think the problem was that they were more interested in trying to go and get goals and trying to make, keep running up the score. So less of an issue. This Galaxy team doesn't seem to have a problem with taking their foot off the gas. That's not the problem. It's more like they keep flooring it right through the brick wall. And sometimes
it's like when you're driving, right, and you want to keep pressing the accelerator at a corner, right, when you're racing.
Right.
But instead, you go off the track and you have to, spend more time getting back on there. So that's kind of how I describe that situation for sure.
I love it. All right. Well, let's see. Anything else you want to talk about, Alex, or should we get out of here?
All good. I mean, just make sure to avoid those 4-3 wins, right? Those aren't very convincing wins. And that's the one thing we need from the LA Galaxy, a convincing win in these next couple of weeks.
It makes everybody nervous. You don't want to make everybody nervous. Let them have a good time, enjoy their Sunday. By the way, the LA Galaxy doing a great job so far of not ruining people's weekends. So as far as that goes, that's a win so far this year, after all the turmoil from last year and all the seasons before as well. So remember, last time the 3 designated players all scored in the same game, 2016. All right, so make sure you tell your friends. That's a good trivia question for LA Galaxy fans. All right, but as Lasso says in the very bottom here, he's like, but 3 points, but 3 points, Alex. It's you didn't play that well, still got 3 points. That's a sign in a lot of ways of a really good team. So let's continue to watch them as they go. All right, Alex, tell people where they can find you, and we'll get out of here. Let's go.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and X at ALXRuiz15. That's where you can find all my stats that I post, all my opinions about the LA Galaxy. You can also read my Substack, the Galactic Tribune, where you can find match coverage, and also a lot more in-depth articles as well going about the LA Galaxy.
All right, there it is. Make sure you subscribe to that Substack for sure. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. Taylor Swift dropped an album, and then 15 extra songs. That's kind of what this podcast is. We're giving you just the album, and then we're dropping 15 extra songs, but it's all wrapped up into this last, hour and 15 minutes. So hope you enjoyed that. All right, for Alex, El Nino, Ruiz, I'm Josh, Pato, Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.